So most people, when they get started with real estate, it's similar beginning. Most people discover it somehow on a podcast or they hear about it in a book or watch a YouTube video. Then they're intrigued, and so they start to study and they start to learn, just like you did. Then they start to, they say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump in. And then they buy one house their first year, maybe. They maybe buy one house their second year. Maybe they skip a year or two. And then 3, 4, 5, 6 years in, they've got a small portfolio. 10 years in, they're finally starting, getting warmed up. You didn't do that. So what was the difference? What was different about your mentality or about your situation that allowed you to just ramp up so rapid?
Yeah. So there's a quote that I live by, and it's not necessarily always a good thing. And the quote is, anything worth doing is worth overdoing. Moderation is for cowards. So there's another way of saying that too, but that I've heard. But moderation is for cowards, and that can be really bad in some aspects of life. Believe me, I But when I get into something, I'm all in. When I get into even being a husband, being a dad, being a friend, being a real estate investor. It also sports, working out,
growing a mullet.
I'm going to grow a mullet, and I'm all in. So I'm an all in type of person. I'm not somebody that stands on the sidelines. And so when I did it, I was all in on it. It wasn't like hey, I'm going to test this out, test the waters, see how it works. It was, hey, we're going to do this. And I'm all in.
Do you have any advice for people who are afraid to jump in to buy their first rental property? What do you tell them?
What's the worst that could happen? What is the worst that can happen? For me, that was part of it, where we were literally living in Lexi's parents' house, and I was making $40,000 a year. I was $60,000 in student loan debt. So I couldn't really go. I mean, I could have went down. I could have lost some money and just put myself into more debt. But it goes back to, you talk about this all the time, asymmetrical bets. Yeah. The worst thing that could have happened is we buy a property, and maybe we flip a property and we break even on it, or maybe we buy a rental property and it doesn't cash flow. Or maybe we lose $10,000 or $15,000. Or we do it and we figure it out, and we're where I'm sitting today. The best definitely outweighed the worst. And so I think that for everybody, what's the worst that could happen? If you dive into this, the worst that can happen is you don't make money, you lose $10,000 or $15,000, which I know sounds like a lot of money. That's scary, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not, with what it could do for your life.
Beautiful.
So,
all right, you mentioned in January 2020, you bought your first rental pretty quick after getting started. How did you finance that? How did you get that worked out?
Yeah. So I found that deal from a wholesaler. He reached out to me and sold it to me. I think, I'm going to butcher the numbers on this. We bought it for, I believe, would have been $65,000, I believe, is where we bought it at. So I think they made a 10K spread on it. So they had it for $55,000. They sold it to me for $65,000. The rehab on it was $30,000, and it was worth $135,000, $140,000. And so I originally wanted to use hard money, and couldn't get hard money because I hadn't done enough deals. And so I made a list of all of the rich people that I knew, and knew that I wanted it. And so I just started going from rich person to rich person and asking them if they would lend on the host. And first couple people said no. I won't say their names. They might be listening.
But they're dead to you.
First couple people said no. And then I had a really great, this is a great point. For when it comes to reaching out to private money lenders. So I didn't know what I was doing, and I had zero history doing it. So I didn't have a great portfolio to present to somebody. And I was going into private money lenders. I literally was just going down the rich people on my phone, and saying this person, this person, this person. And I was going into those conversations, making it almost needy in a way, where or hey, can you help me out? Almost like I was asking for something. And I had a great conversation with a mentor of mine, and he basically gave me some advice of no, you have a really great offering. You are coming in there and you're offering them something in return, a really great interest rate that I was giving them. I paid 12% at that time. I've lowered it a little bit since then. But walk in there with confidence, knowing this is a really great offer, and if you don't want it, the next person's going to take it. That's and so I started walking into those conversations with a little bit more confidence, and probably my fourth or fifth person ended up saying, "Hey, we'll lend on this," and ended up doing that. And within 3 months, I gave them, about $5,000 back. And the second that I gave that back, they called me and said, "This was the easiest money I've ever made. Let's do it again." And that's still one of my biggest private money lenders to this day. So have used them over and over and over again.
I love that. There's the concept around like, I don't say fake it till you make it, but just like being confident because you do provide value and there's something there.
Yeah.
That is just so unique. In fact, I'm going to see if I can pull it up. I don't know if I'll be able to find it here. Hold on. Yeah, right here. So there's a quote I read the other day that I thought was just super good. I'm going to read it now. It basically says, Kurt Vonnegut once said, "We are what we pretend to be, so we must be careful about what we pretend to be." I'm like, I read that, it hit me so hard because it's like, it's not always fake it till you make it, but it's like, none of us know how to do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you've never done a deal before. Like, you can go in there scared and you can go in there like timid, and everyone will feel that. Because you're either pretending to be scared or you're pretending to be confident. Either way, like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, you're making this up. You've never done it before. So like, you might as well be careful and pretend you're confident.
Yeah.
And guess what? You become confident. And I was not naturally good at speaking. I'm not naturally good at writing. I'm not naturally good at any of this stuff. I just pretended I was. Pretended I was a great podcaster. Like, I had no idea. I was terrified on my mind. But I was like, I want to pretend. Yeah, there's a certain level of like, again, it's not fake it till you make it. It's like you become that person in that moment. You are what you pretend.
Yeah.
So it's not that you want to become that person. Like, when you pretend, you just become that.
Dude, it goes back to almost visualization. Am I saying that right? Where I remember reading in a book a story about they took a bunch of people and it was about dunking a basketball. It was about your vertical. And so they took a bunch of people and they put them through, a 6-week training program where they, lifted weights, they jumped, whatever, to jump higher. They took another group of people and they said, "Hey, just envision the 3 steps in jumping as high as you can every single day for 20 minutes. And at the end of the program, and I don't remember how long it was, the people that visualized themselves jumping higher actually jumped higher than the people that were working out. And it was nuts. Like, but it's so true. Like, just if you pretend enough, you are going to become that.
Yeah, that's wild. All right, so you pretended to be successful and buy 100 deals a year. Did that, like, were you surrounded by people that were just doing like lots of deals? Or were you surrounded by people who were doing none? Were you connected with anybody, or were you by yourself? Like, how did your community help or not help your
Yes,
ambition?
That's a phenomenal question because
you
are such a great podcaster. You're such a great podcaster. So when I started, I did not have people in my life that were investing in real estate. And so I knew that I had to find somebody that was investing in real estate. And so I had a friend on Facebook who I'd graduated high school with. He was older than me, but and he was I'd see him post every once in a while about real estate. And so I reached out to him on Facebook and I was like, "Hey man, would love to just sit down and chat with you about real estate." And to his credit, he immediately messaged me back and was like, "Hey, yeah, let's meet up for breakfast." Ended up, and I didn't know this at the time, he ended up being honestly one of the largest investors, if not the largest investor in St. Louis.
Wow.
And we sat down and I talked to him and he was telling me about everything that was going on. And it blew me away. And so immediately I got plugged in with him and then with his company and with his network. And he was such a great guy, and plugged me into, gave me everybody that I need to know, contractors, real estate agents, wholesalers. He just connected me with everybody. And then through that, I started hanging around people that were doing 50, 60, 70, 80. I mean, Sam was doing 200 deals a year at this time. Right. And so he was somebody that I was with all the time. And so just being around those people elevated me where, I think one of the biggest struggles that people face sometimes is like the belief that it can't be done.
Yeah.
You hear the story of like the 4-minute mile where it took, nobody broke it, until like 1960 or I don't remember what year it was. And then the next year, like 15 people broke the 4-minute mile just because it was proven that it could be done, Yeah. And so that was what this network was for me, is like, hey, this person just started a couple years ago and already has 40 rentals. This person, I think Sam started in 2013 or 14 is already doing, and this was 2020, is already doing 200 houses a year. Like, it can be done. And so being around that, it elevated my confidence and honestly just gave me the ability to move forward with a lot of aggression maybe, or aggressively move forward because I knew that it could be done.
I interviewed a guy on the Bigger Pockets podcast years ago who, when I asked him, he did 100 flips his first year. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, how the heck did you do 100 flips your first year? Again, similar story to yours. And he goes, well, all my friends were doing 100 flips a year. So I love this phrase. This is like just rocked my world. He goes, I didn't know that wasn't how it's normally done.
That's
right.
That's amazing. Yeah.
He just he assumed that that's what flipping was you do 100 houses a year because that's what his friends did, which is also true for every area of life. If you just come this might sound a little weird, but I'll say it anyway. We were sitting at the Super Bowl party at your house recently, right?
Yeah.
And I was looking around the room and I was like, every single person in this room is super in shape. All of us, we're super. We're not Olympians, but we're all in shape. There was nobody that wasn't in shape. And I was like, that's interesting. I was like, it's because we all hang out together and we just naturally become like each other. I've gotten way better in shape since you moved out here.
Yeah.
Because you're in shape. And so I don't know, there's some thing around you become like those you associate with.
Yeah.
And if you don't rise to the level of everyone around you, you just end up leaving them because it pulls you down or you just feel weird in that group, maybe subconsciously, but yeah, you become like those you associate with.
Yeah. 100%. And so the networking for me was the secret sauce, and getting involved with those people, and even the realizing how easy it was. So I remember, and it was definitely a lot easier to find good deals in 2020. Sure. But I remember one of the very first houses that I bought. It was I was around $80,000. The lady had agreed to $80,000 with me, and I was sure that I was going to lose money because she accepted my offer, And so I called Sam, and he's like, "No, dude, he checked out the numbers and was like, it works." And I ended up making $25,000 on that deal. And just realizing, having somebody there to walk me through it, but also realize hey, this isn't rocket science. I literally you can put together, you can analyze a single family house on the back of a napkin or in your head, the ARV is here, rehab's going to be here, here's where my offer's at. It's not rocket science, And so just learning that from them, where I think that I thought that it had to be so sophisticated and complex, and it's really not.
Yeah.